I have made my bold stance with Star Trek Picard rather known through my various videos. I've been told by quite a few that I've been too hard on the show or simply do not know good television. A lot of this is probably based off the fact that every one of my reviews really doesn't feature a few things I liked or the things that the show did well. Perhaps viewers, or even myself, tend to forget that those passions can simply lead to overstepping, so I decided to stop, take a breather, and list things off that Star Trek Picard did do well as a few things it should have done differently, and what I'd like to see going forward in the future. As usual, I'd love to hear what you thought of the series in the comments, and if you liked the video, consider subscribing.
Do it.
The biggest praise I can immediately give to Star Trek Picard is the wonderful look it has. This really comes down to tasteful direction and cinematography throughout the series. Without a doubt, this is the most cinematic looking series Star Trek has ever had. Gone are the overlit bridges and clear set designs, and in are proper set constructions, quality lighting, and a real focus on cinematic presentation. This is certainly not an ugly show, with great vistas, beautifully lit sets, and a clear futuristic visual setup. I tend to look back every now and then on Star Trek Generations. While theatrical film, something about it always felt off to me. I really think it comes down to the reuse of the Next Generation sets with movie lighting. Part of me had always wanted Star Trek Picard to bring that, but I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah. Can you feel it, baby?
Patrick Stewart's return to the famous character is always welcomed.
You must look inside deeply and honestly.
While I don't always agree with the direction of the character, one has to applaud Patrick Stewart's return. Sir Patrick Stewart is on the short end of 79 years old. This summer, the famed actor will be 80 years old. Without a doubt, he still gives an oomph and gravitas to the role of Jean-Luc Picard. Throughout the series, it really bothered me how old Stewart looked. If you watch interviews of the man, he has a real life about him and an energy that cannot be replaced.
Hey, we've got the Knights of the Round Table!
That rundown, worn and beaten look I think really came from his debilitating and deadly brain disease. So perhaps one of my biggest knocks on the series was a crafted intention by the famous actor. Who would have thought? I'd love to see the character go back to a real revered place, rather than on the opposite end of each argument.
Admiral Picard, with all due respect and at long last, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I'd show you around my estate, but it's more of a hovel, so that would just be, humiliating.
Which is one of the reasons.
You can't tell us how you felt, but your initial actions were to call for a massive relocation of Romulans?
Sure, Picard was no stranger to conflict and opposition during his years of service, but I always felt like each character treated him with a level of respect.
Sir, may I suggest you take this up with Admiral? I'm taking this up with you, Will! The judge advocate thought that you were participating in a conspiracy to cover up the truth.
Intense and upfront writing can still be written without heated insults or dropping the F-bomb.
We met before. Yes, sir. We met in battle. I was on the Saratoga at Wolf 359.
Another praise to the show is the exploration the show still presents. We did journey throughout the stars to get multiple storylines and characters across the galaxy. Most of the time, for me, the stories in those characters didn't really work. Why did Dr. Bruce Maddox place Soji on the artifact? Why did the new crew allow Dr. Jurati to be part of the crew after she killed Maddox? A lot of these interesting concepts were simply sidestepped or completely ignored. The show was quick to put these characters into emotional situations together that sometimes didn't really feel earned. While it is great to remember those classic moments, like when Picard sat down for the poker game in TNG, one has to remember this took years and years to build up.
I should have done this a long time ago.
Unfortunately, some of these moments ultimately didn't really feel earned for the simple fact that it just takes time. Data's send-off scene, while I felt a bit redundant, was enough of a send-off for those who felt unsatisfied with the character's death in Star Trek Nemesis. The visual representation of the afterlife was a clever concept, and seeing Brent Spiner return to the role of Data once again was enough for any fan to get really excited. This is more than likely the last time we will ever see Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner together, and thankfully, this moment was incredibly well written and well acted.
Love, friendship, these are precious because we know they cannot endure.
Going forward, I'd like to see Star Trek Picard get a hold of the writing. At times, the writing, primarily between characters, can be quality. It's when the show pulls back, doing its best to interweave characters and multiple storylines that it truly begins to fault. Some will address these faults as nitpicks, but I have to disagree, especially when a lot of the plot focus, like Soji on the artifact, take up a good amount of time. It's clear to me that Star Trek has taken a left turn to representing today's values.
Which is one of the reasons.
You can't tell us how you felt, but your initial actions were to call for a massive relocation of Romulans?
While it always has done that, Starfleet and the Federation has always been the symbol of well-intentioned and purpose.
So you here to help with the cleanup, or do you just make messes?
Gosh.
Going forward, if the writers do want to keep this political comparison going, I hope they do so with well-intentioned characters and a better world sensibility. We must remember, for a lot of us, myself included, Trek is an escape. While the universe did feel pretty grand in scope thanks to the multitude of characters and worlds visited, it would be cool to see the Federation. We did briefly with the construction yard and the copy and paste Riker fleet. Where are all the ships? Where are the good guys in the universe? I'd love to see what the Enterprise is doing right now. This is something I really thought the final battle was going to have. You know, Captain Worf and the Enterprise, maybe Enterprise F coming in to save the day. Perhaps this will be something for a later date and time. Who knows? Finally, I made it abundantly clear how the first season of Star Trek Picard was a disappointment, at least to me. Showrunner Michael Chabon stated in an interview, "Sometimes you're motivated to have things simply because it's possibly going to piss off or provoke people who seem to have missed the memo about just what exactly Star Trek is all about."
Shut the fuck up.
Ultimately, that really sums up my issue with the underlying theme of this show. Sure, Trek has waded into dangerous waters before and done things differently since the dawn of time. Remember when Kirk and Uhura kissed? The bridge was made up of different races and ethnicities? This did incite issues from networks and viewers, but the goal wasn't to piss these people off, but to display a proper image of how we should be and what we should be together.
An African-American female officer and a Russian and a Japanese person, right after World War II, that it was about surface one-dimensional qualities. Then, as I got older, I learned that the diversity was actually an idea and philosophy between the people. We were out there not seeking out weird-looking aliens, but we were seeking out new philosophy.
If you're writing, directing, or acting in order to piss off a demographic, I think you're in it for the wrong reasons. Once again, at least in my humble opinion. What did you think of Star Trek Picard? What did you end up liking about the show, even if you didn't ultimately like this show? Let me know in the comments below. Hey Tots, thanks so much for watching. I think I've said all I can say about Picard, so for now, I'll just shut up. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya, Tots.